Hi, this is Heidi from Garden Crossings, and it's time to give you a fall update on the Proven Winners perennial bed. Things are getting large, so some of them are going to be a little tricky to figure out the exact names, so I'll do my best. But yeah, it's just amazing the transformation that occurs from month to month. It's the beginning of September right now. So if you'd like to see what has bloomed in what months, check back to my other videos on YouTube and look for the Proven Winners trial bed, perennial trial bed tours, and you can see the different months of what's blooming. So let's take a look and see what's blooming here now in September. So up front and center here, we still have some of the Leucanthemum marshmallow blooming. You can see they're a little bit towards the end of the bloom cycle, but it's September and there's flowers, so we'll count them as fall flowering. Behind them is part of the meant to be series of Agastache. This is the Queen Bee Nectarine, and this one really has been blooming all summer long. These are about 3 foot tall and 3 foot wide. There's 3 different plants in this grouping. A great plant for the hummingbirds and pollinators, and just really a great long blooming perennial. Behind it, there's still a few blooms left on the hibiscus. And like I said, things are getting big in here, so I'm going to try to find the names. I think this one's Candy Crush because of its habit. Beautiful pink blooms, kind of a more columnar habit in the Summerific series. Really pretty color. There's a few phlox blooming yet. These are the cloudburst, I believe. Yeah, the cloudburst phlox. These are blooming early on in the summer, and they just continued all summer long, giving just a little bit of a show like we're seeing here now. The first flush of the season was the best, but again, we're going to count them because they're flowering. The Dicentra pink diamonds, this is the first time that I've seen them actually kind of looking like they're slowing down for the season. But these plants, they definitely deserve a rest at this point. They have been in flower since May, early May, all summer long, in the heat of the summer, just blooming and blooming and blooming. There's still a few flowers, so we're counting it, but these plants really are a very hardworking plant that blooms all summer long. We have some salvia here. I think this is the Pink Dawn. This was a spring bloomer and it was trimmed, and now you can see there's some secondary blooms going on. So again, not the full flush of color like we see early on, but it is blooming right now. Kniphofia there in the background, that is the Flashpoint Kniphofia, one of the taller in the Pyromania series. It's got kind of that light yellow color, and then as the flower, the new part of the flower is a little darker, and then as the flower ages, you can see it gets lighter and lighter. Kniphofia really adds some interesting texture, I think, to the garden with their tall flower spikes and just kind of a nice airy, whimsy plant that kind of just sways and looks really pretty in the breeze. The next thing that's flowering here is the Lemon Jade Sedum, which is a fall sedum, a fall flowering sedum. And this is a color it's supposed to be, this beautiful chartreuse green color. So really a unique coloration. You can see how it pops against all the various other greens in the garden. Looks great with blacks if you have any black plants. So really something unique. There's ornamental grasses blooming, and I cannot see the names of these, so I'm going to have to try to see if we can put it up on the screen when I can go back to my reference book to see what all my options are. I do believe the blue one in the back there is totem pole, but I'm going to put it on the screen just to be sure so you know exactly what you're looking at. The Nepeta, they are still blooming. They've bloomed early in the season with a light little trim. They've continued to bloom all summer long. This one here is the Cat's Meow. If you're looking for one just a little shorter, it would be Cat's Pajamas. Next is the Russian Sage. This is the Denim and Lace Sage, a beautiful, more columnar type habit, drought tolerant plant for the full sun. Really doing nicely. Behind it is the Heliopsis Tuscan, it's either Tuscan, I think it's Tuscan Sun. This is a very drought tolerant plant, loves the heat, and also is a very long blooming perennial in the garden. Few flowers here yet from Daisy May. Monarda Pardon My Rose is also giving just a little bit of blooms down there. But this beautiful mass of color, this is sedum. This is part of the Rockin' Low, I believe is the series. And this is either Superstar or Pop Star. This is Pop Star. Beautiful magenta blooms. This here is a grouping of either 3 or 5 plants. A lot of the plants in this garden are 3s or 5s. So this is not the size of one plant, but this would be a grouping of several. There's a few Salvia Violet Profusion sending up a few blooms. That was an early season bloomer, but with a light trim is now reblooming. That is not a phlox, that's a sedum, and that one is probably Superstar. Next here we have another sedum. This is Sedum Tiramisu. Yeah, this is Sedum Tiramisu. I love kind of the bicolor blooms on this one. Again, another kind of a unique flower color for sedum. A lot of times you're just expecting that bright rosy pink color, but this one is more, I don't even know what colors to say, kind of a burgundy, burnt brick red maybe. A little bit of yellow in there. So really a pretty nice splash of color. Behind it is the Stand By Me Clematis. It's still trying to put out a couple blooms. This was blooming more in July. And the thing that's neat with Stand By Me is even when the flowers are done, I think that the seed heads are really pretty to just kind of leave on the plant because they too give the plant some interest. There's going to be some new Campanula for 2023, these purple ones. I don't have the name right now. It might be Midnight, but I might have to verify that. But these have been blooming pretty much all summer, just kind of, they had their first really good coverage of flowers, and then throughout the summer, like you're seeing here now, just, you know, spitter spatter blooms. But again, it's flowering, so I think that's very valuable. In the back there is phlox. That is part of the Luminary series. I believe that one is Luminary Ultraviolet. That one has already bloomed once earlier in August. So all the blooms now you're seeing are kind of like a secondary bloom cycle. Really deep, vibrant purple magenta color. Really gorgeous. The coneflower you're seeing is the Echinacea, the Price is White. That one is kind of getting to the end of its bloom time. Here's the Opening Act Phlox. This again is a spring bloomer, blooms in May or June with a light trim. It will do a secondary round of flowers later on in the season. Hibiscus French Vanilla still has a couple little flowers on it. French Vanilla is a very soft, buttery white color with that beautiful hot magenta eye. Part of the Summerific series. A few blooms here on the Dianthus Paint the Town Fancy. That too is like a May-June bloomer, but still giving us a little bit of flower color here in September. There's a lot of Salvia planted here in the middle, part of the Profusion series. Salvia Pink Profusion, here is the first one we're seeing, spring bloomer, but with a light trim, it will give you secondary blooms. Back and Black Sedum is in its prime right now, fall blooming perennial. Black foliage throughout the summer, and then once fall hits, the little, I like to call them broccoli looking heads, open up to a really beautiful deep crimson red flower. Up front here is Heuchera Dolce Wildberry, nice dark foliage. That's just a great foliage plant for year-round interest. Few blooms here on the hibiscus. In the center there, that bright hot pink one is Evening Rose, I believe. And right here is Valentine. I love the frilly deep red blooms here on the hibiscus Valentine. Salvia Snow Kiss is blooming again. That was a spring bloomer. And with a light trim, it sends up additional blooms throughout the summer. Gypsophilia Festival Star, or Baby's Breath, looking really pretty. That's a summer bloomer. So I'm not sure, that one might have been planted here. That one might not have come out of the ground here this spring. This one might have been transplanted in. So I do believe this one is blooming a little bit later than when you would typically see it blooming in the landscape. Oh, look at those beautiful coneflowers. This is a new coneflower for 2023, the raspberry beret. Check out those huge, huge flowers. I have a few of these planted up at the up north garden and also at the garden at the greenhouse, so I'm excited to watch how those do as far as coming back for next season. The dark foliage you're seeing is the dark side of the moon astilbe that has purple flowers on it during the summer, and you can see the flower heads are still there, but the great deep dark black foliage. Artemisia silver lining is a new artemisia for 2023. Beautiful silver foliage, and it looks really great paired with that black foliage of the astilbe dark side of the moon. Tucked in the middle of the bed, we see some Agastache. That's the Agastache Royal Raspberry. And that's been a long blooming plant here throughout the season. Looks like a couple of them kind of fizzled out in the heat. So that might just be, they didn't get enough water here. Who knows? Because everywhere I've seen those have done fabulous at our greenhouse, at our house. So I think maybe it is a water issue. I don't know. Echinacea, the fuchsia, is bright. You can see the beautiful pink blooms and then the faded flowers. These are all fairly young plants on this end of the garden. As you can see, they're much smaller than where we have recently been, but that's because these are all new additions. So they just haven't been here as long and haven't had the time to fill out and get mature. Beautiful Monarda there, still blooming. That usually blooms in late June, July. Some more heuchera. This is the evening gown heuchera. Beautiful dark foliage with the ruffled leaves. In the back, these are the ones that always get a lot of comments. This is the Heliopsis. This has been blooming all summer long. Touch of blush and bit of honey. And it looks like they are just ready for fall. But they've certainly done a great, great job all summer long, giving this garden just fabulous, fabulous color. Phlox Backlight, it's in its rebloom cycle. This was blooming in end of July or so. And so any blooms you're seeing right now are just all secondary blooms. Here is another sedum. Let's see if the name tag is in here. I'm not seeing the tag, so it might be tiramisu, or it might be coral jade. I'm guessing it's coral jade because I think we saw tiramisu earlier in this tour. A few more of the luminary phlox blooming, all secondary blooms. Bloom the end of July and August. Drops of Jupiter oregano. You can see the beautiful foliage here, that chartreuse green color with the purple flowers. This is one plant that adds great foliage color to the garden, but you can see it is a spreader, so be careful where you plant it. Check out this foliage here. This is of the Amsonia string theory. So this is a spring bloomer, usually in May, but the reason I'm showing you this is because I want you to watch this one for in the next video. This plant has the beautiful spring flowers, but gorgeous fall foliage. So as it continues to get cooler here, this is going to start turning shades of yellow and orange. So I'm really excited to see how this looks once the weather starts cooling. Pennisetum lemon squeeze, looking gorgeous right now. The plumes just dancing in the breeze. Phlox opening act ultra pink. This was a blooming in May, June, and you can see it's got secondary blooms on it. Tucked in the middle there is Russian sage. That is Sage Advice, the purple blooms. Great fall, late summer, fall flowering plant. I believe this is cherry cheesecake hibiscus. A few flowers here on the Going Bananas daylily. Panicum Prairie Winds Apache rosegrass, a great fall grass. Again, just look at those little plumes dancing in the breeze. Another salvia reblooming. Hibiscus. right, so this is totem pole. Panicum totem pole, a great columnar shape, strappy leaf ornamental grass, nice dense habit. Up front here we have the sedum Rock and Grow Pure Joy, a great, very compact sedum, light pink flowers. Up against the hibiscus, that little tuft of grass you're seeing is the Schizocarium Prairie Winds Blue Paradise Grass. More Kniphofia blooming. This is Kniphofia Backdraft, along with Bundle of Joy sedum, which is white flowers with just a touch of pink to them. Heuchera Primo Peachberry Ice Heuchera, doing great. Few flowers left yet from the sedum Yellow Brick Road. That's a summer flowering sedum. And this hibiscus is really doing fabulous. A little bit later bloomer. I think this one is the evening rose or edge of night. We'll see if the tag pops up as I'm walking along, but really dark foliage and beautiful flowers. Salvia, I think this is Purple Illusion. This is doing fabulous, like really clean foliage. This is a spring bloomer, so these are all secondary blooms. Really nice and clean looking. I skipped over one that I should talk about. This is Euchemis. This is going to be a new perennial for 2023. The flowers are a little bit past their spent point, but great foliage texture in the garden. I really missed those because I never caught them when they were in their prime. August was a busy month for me. Here's a new cone flower. This is Echinacea Butter Pecan. It's a double, or pecan, depends how you say it. Tomato, right? Beautiful double blooms, a large full, I'm going to say head on them with the little petals coming off. Really a crisp, clean flower. Some more of the Gypsophilia Festival Star. This area here we're also getting into our new plants for probably 2023 or beyond, so very young. Sedum Superstar. And I think that is about it that's really standing out as blooming. Here's a Stokesia, beautiful kind of white, light pink Stokesia. Maybe that's something to keep our eye on. And it looks like there's a few more Agastache kind of tucked in too, so maybe there's some Agastache that we'll be adding into the collection in the next few years. So hopefully you enjoyed this tour of the perennial bed here at Walters Gardens, showing you what's blooming here for fall color. That's beginning of September. This garden is a 5B6A, so any of the plants that you're seeing here are for sure hardy down to zone 5. If there's any you have questions on, feel free to leave your questions and comments below. I'd love to hear what interests you, or maybe what you are wondering about as far as when to trim, how to trim. Those are all great questions, so feel free to leave any questions and comments below. This is Heidi from Garden Crossings.